Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Suzanne Rubinetti. I'm a psychotherapist and I work with eating disorders and body image. My practice is in Summit, New Jersey, where I am today. I know some people have subscribed to the channel. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, this is pretty much not scripted. I thought about this probably in the last hour or two. I was working with a young woman yesterday and I was sort of inspired to write a little bit about her story. She's a teenager, she's in high school, and together we sort of came up with this term we called pandemic depression, COVID depression. So I thought it would be important to just spend a few minutes talking about that. And again, this is sort of from my heart and soul of working with her yesterday and thinking a little bit about this today. So my practice is I work with a lot of females, high school kids, and college kids. And I am seeing a significant amount of what I'm going to call this pandemic or COVID depression. And it's actually worrisome. Now, I think a lot of people are experiencing that, but for this next few minutes, I'm going to talk about that age group, which is high school and college. If we look at like stages of development, high school years are the years where you individuate more and you move more toward peers. There's a lot of pretty significant things that happen, like getting your driver's license. As you get older, you start to explore what interest you have and where you may want to go to college. And, you form your peer groups and athletics, a bunch of things, whatever you're involved in, clubs, theater. And then as you get to college, you have those same things, but you also are in a different playing field because you leave your maybe your group at home, your parents and maybe your peer group and all the things you did in high school, and you're moving toward a different or deeper level of individuation. So, the COVID pandemic, the depression has really put a damper on that. So the potential threat of possibly not going back to school, whether that's your college or your high school, or going back in this very altered state, is actually quite devastating for a lot of these young people that I'm working with. So what are some symptoms I feel that are going on with this pandemic depression? And they're similar to other depression as well. But I'm hearing from a lot of my clients, again in that age group, that they're having difficulty sleeping. There is definitely a pull toward more social media, TikTok videos, Instagram, just surfing the internet, because there is more time. That may or may not be affecting somebody's sleep. There's a lot of dysregulated eating, and that doesn't necessarily have to be an eating disorder. Oftentimes that is, I'm hearing this from a number of young people, that they're sleeping later, so maybe they're getting up at 11 or 12, so they have already missed breakfast, but they're sort of hungry for lunch, but then they miss the third meal. So that has also sort of changed the structure. Young people who normally have a routine where they go to the gym, for example, that's also been disrupted. There's a lot of sadness and a lot of anxiety that I'm hearing about. Sort of some of the young people I work with are describing as an unsettled feeling. Some of the college students feel so much on edge because their schools haven't released plans, or they talk to one friend, the plan is completely different than what they're doing. So, anxiety oftentimes comes from feeling powerless for anyone. So you feel powerless, so you develop more anxiety. So for example, somebody who has a fear of flying, they have a heightened anxiety because they can't really control the pilot. So once they get on the plane, they have to surrender that. So the thing you can do there is just be mindful of what you do have control over. So, we are powerless to the COVID, the pandemic. We are powerless to the CDC and what they're going to decide. We are powerless to the track of the virus. We are powerless to reports that we hear from the governors. There's nothing we can do about that. And again, that causes tremendous anxiety. So you almost have to turn that powerlessness over. So, one thing that could be helpful in a powerless situation, again, similar to the airplane example, you don't have power over the pilot, right? You just don't. But you do have power over what you can do to feel more comfortable once you get on that plane, whatever that is, a routine, a ritual, whatever helps you feel more comfortable. So it's similar in this situation. We don't have control over a lot of those things. Our younger people do not. So we have to decide what we do have control over. So that may be, for an example, if sleeping late is really wreaking havoc with your schedule, then maybe come up with a plan of 2 days this week, I'm going to make a routine where I get up earlier, just to give yourself more structure. And that may feel hard to do at first, but it may eventually help. Or I'm going to have to put myself on a little bit of a routine to regulate my eating schedule, as hard as that is. Because again, eventually, if you do that a few weeks, you may start to feel better. A lot of young people are missing their peers so much. If you're able to do a socially distant get-together and you feel comfortable, a lot of the young people I work with are reporting that that has been incredibly helpful. That they're a little bit over the Zoom meetings or the Netflix parties on Zoom, and they would rather actually see their friends. So if you can do that comfortably and safely, that can also be helpful. So the more empowered you feel in your life over powerless things, right? The more empowered you begin to feel about your decisions, the less anxiety you will feel. But it is something that's not going to happen miraculously. You have to put time in. If you come up with a schedule, you have to do it repeatedly, as hard as it is. And just a final note, if you are really experiencing a lot of this, it can be incredibly helpful to speak to somebody, whether that is a trained professional or your parents or a peer or a guidance counselor or a teacher. Just to share what's going on for you can be incredibly helpful. And if you're a parent watching this, I think this is important also. It's important to recognize that as a teenager or a college kid, their perspective is completely different than those of us that are adults and perhaps have more wisdom. That as a parent, you may feel like you want to say to your child, well, just be grateful that you're not sick, and you'll be able to have some kind of education. And in their minds, it's hard for them to grasp that. So to just be mindful of the perspective of your teenager or your college age student. And again, this pandemic is hard for everybody, but I hope this provides you with some support and information. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and look forward to hearing any kind of feedback. Is always helpful. Thank you.